October 14, 1943, 15,000 feet above Schweinfurt, Germany. A German fighter pilot scratched another entry in his logbook. His 17th heavy bomber destroyed. Through his Focke-Wulf 190's canopy, he watched the remaining B-17 Flying Fortresses struggle to maintain formation, their gunners spraying desperate streams of 50 caliber rounds at empty sky. The mathematics of aerial combat were brutally simple. Without fighter escorts, American bombers were expensive targets. That day, 291 B-17s had crossed into German airspace. By sunset, 60 would never return to England, with another 17 written off upon landing. The Luftwaffe called it a turkey shoot. The Americans called it Black Thursday, the darkest day in 8th Air Force history. Neither side knew this moment of German triumph would be among their last. Within 4 months, everything would change. German fighter pilots of late 1943 had every reason for confidence. Men like Major Wilhelm Ferdinand Galland and Hauptmann Georg Peter Eder had turned bomber interception into a science of destruction. They'd identified critical weaknesses in the American combat box formation, blind spots, limited ammunition, and the psychological impact of sustained attacks. The root of American vulnerability lay in simple physics. No Allied fighter in 1943 had the range to escort bombers deep into Germany. The P-47 Thunderbolt's combat radius reached only 375 miles with drop tanks, enough for the German border, but no further. The twin-engine P-38 Lightning flew further, but suffered mechanical failures in European cold. German fighters simply waited beyond Allied escort range, then attacked with concentrated force. Luftwaffe pilots called the point where escorts turned back the golden moment. They could attack, land, refuel, rearm, and attack again, while bombers struggled homeward. Some pilots flew 3 or 4 sorties against a single raid. The P-51 Mustang's development began not as American initiative, but British request. In April 1940, the British Purchasing Commission approached North American Aviation, seeking additional P-40 fighters. Instead, North American proposed building an entirely new fighter in just 120 days. The NA-73X first flew October 26, 1940. Remarkable rapid development. Initially powered by an Allison engine, early Mustangs excelled at low altitude, but struggled above 15,000 feet, precisely where bomber escort was needed. The transformation came from unlikely Anglo-American cooperation. Rolls-Royce test pilot Ronald Harker recognized the airframe's potential and proposed fitting it with the Merlin 61 engine. The first Merlin-powered Mustang flew in October 1942. Results were extraordinary. Speed increased from 390 to 440 miles per hour. Service ceiling jumped from 31,000 to 42,000 feet. The marriage of American mass production with British engine technology created something neither nation could achieve alone. What made the P-51B truly revolutionary was range. The secret lay in 3 factors: exceptional aerodynamic efficiency from its laminar flow wing, internal fuel capacity optimized for efficiency, and ability to carry external tanks without severe performance degradation. With 108-gallon drop tanks, combat radius stretched to 850 miles, enough to reach Berlin, fight for 20 minutes, and return to England. The 354th Fighter Group received first P-51Bs in November 1943. Their first combat mission came December 1st, a fighter sweep over Belgium. December 13th brought the first long-range escort to Kiel, 490 miles from base. The psychological impact was immediate. German pilots expecting unescorted bombers over northern Germany were shocked to encounter aggressive American fighters deep in Reich territory. March 4, 1944, marked the turning point. Colonel Donald Blakesley led P-51s of the 4th Fighter Group on the first escort mission to Berlin, once on 100 miles round trip. For Luftwaffe pilots, the sight was incomprehensible. They'd been told Allied fighters could never reach Berlin. Yet there they were, fresh and aggressive, after flying 500 miles. The combat that followed was savage. The Luftwaffe committed over 200 fighters to defend Berlin, but faced not exhausted bomber gunners, but fresh Mustang pilots with altitude advantage and superior aircraft. The 4th Fighter Group alone claimed 15 victories. Reichsmarshal Hermann Göring reportedly said, "When I saw Mustangs over Berlin, I knew the jig was up." Whether this specific quote is documented or not, it captures German leadership's shock. Every assumption about Reich defense had been based on sanctuary beyond escort range. Now American fighters could strafe airfields near Prague, engage over Munich, escort to any target. February 20th to 25th, 1944. Big Week demonstrated transformed air war dynamics. The 8th Air Force flew 300 bomber sorties with P-51 escort throughout, claiming over 500 German fighters destroyed. More critically, the Luftwaffe lost irreplaceable experienced pilots. General James Doolittle's January 1944 orders freed fighters to seek and destroy the Luftwaffe rather than staying close to bombers. P-51 pilots would escort to target, then dive to strafe airfields, catching German fighters at their most vulnerable during takeoff and landing. The mathematics of attrition now favored Allies overwhelmingly. In January 1944, the Luftwaffe lost 1,311 pilots. February, 2,121. March, 2,115. These included irreplaceable veterans with years of experience. American losses, while significant, were replaced by massive training programs producing 11,000 new pilots monthly. By June 6, 1944, the reversal was complete. On D-Day, the Luftwaffe managed only 319 sorties over France versus 14,674 Allied sorties. Just 2 German fighters appeared over invasion beaches. Oberstleutnant Joseph Pips Priller flew one of those sorties, later describing it as suicide disguised as duty. Germany's technological response, the Me-262 jet fighter, capable of 540 mph, came too late. Adolf Galland, flying Me-262s in 1945, recognized the futility. "We were like tigers facing hundreds of wolves. For every Me-262, the Americans had 50 Mustangs. Jets were vulnerable during takeoff and landing, where loitering Mustangs attacked them. By early 1945, arithmetic had become impossible for Germany. The United States produced 15 to 486 P-51s during the war. At peak strength in March 1945, the 8th Air Force alone operated over 1,000 Mustangs. Against this, the Luftwaffe could muster perhaps 300 to 400 serviceable fighters daily scattered across the entire Reich. Many never flew due to fuel shortages or inexperienced pilots. Kill ratios reflected this imbalance. By 1945, Mustang pilots claimed 10 victories per loss. Lieutenant Colonel John Meyer observed, "By 1945, it wasn't combat, it was execution." Captured Luftwaffe testimony revealed the Mustang's impact. General der Jagdflieger Adolf Galland wrote, "The P-51 was perhaps the most significant fighter of World War II. Until it appeared, we controlled timing and tempo of air battles over Germany. After it arrived, we never regained initiative." The final statistics stagger: 4,950 enemy aircraft destroyed in European air combat, 4,131 destroyed on ground, 9,254 locomotives destroyed. The kill-to-loss ratio in air combat exceeded 11.1, unprecedented in aerial warfare. In 1985, American and German pilots met at a reunion in San Antonio. Colonel Clarence Bud Anderson sat across from Oberst Günther Rall, Germany's third highest scoring ace. Rall raised his glass. "To the P-51 Mustang, the fighter that won the air war. We had excellent aircraft, superb pilots, fighting over our homeland. But you had the Mustang, and that made all the difference." Former Luftwaffe General Johannes Steinhoff, face still bearing scars from his 1945 crash, reflected, "We laughed at your bombers in 1943 because we couldn't imagine America could produce a fighter with range to escort them to Berlin. You ask when we knew the war was lost? That day in March 1944, when we saw Mustangs over Berlin, every German pilot knew the truth then." The transformation from German pilots laughing at unescorted bombers to cowering from Mustang fighters represents one of history's most complete military reversals. In less than 6 months, October 1943 to March 1944, the Luftwaffe went from dominant to defeated, predator to prey, confident to condemned. The P-51 Mustang was the catalyst, but represented something larger. American industrial might, democratic cooperation between allies, and technological innovation driven by necessity rather than ideology. German pilots taught that democracy made America weak, discovered instead unprecedented unity and production capability. When Mustangs appeared over Berlin on March 4, 1944, the laughter stopped forever. In its place came terrible recognition that everything German pilots believed about their superiority and the war's likely outcome was wrong. The P-51 didn't just win the air war, it shattered illusions, destroyed myths, and proved that technological superiority comes not from ideology, but from industrial capacity, international cooperation, and democratic innovation. The story teaches the danger of underestimating enemies, the power of industrial democracy, and how a single weapon system can transform history. The Mustang proved that in modern industrial warfare, courage and skill, while necessary, aren't sufficient. Victory belongs to those who can produce the most, train the best, and innovate the fastest. The transformation was complete, irreversible, and devastating. The laughter had become silence, and the P-51 Mustang had written its name across European skies as the fighter that ended Luftwaffe dominance, and with it, Nazi Germany's hopes for victory.